A rabbi, a Hindu priest, and a politician went on a hike. Night fell and they were exhausted. The hotel on the map was nowhere to be seen. They knocked on the door of a farm and asked if they could spend the night. The farmer said, "Of course, but I only have a small room with 2 beds. One of you will have to sleep in the barn." The Hindu priest said, "I need no material comforts. I will gladly take the barn." The rabbi and the politician were settling in when they heard a knock on the door. They opened it to find the Hindu priest standing there. "So sorry, my friends, but there is a cow in the barn, and I cannot sleep beside such a holy animal." The rabbi said, "No problem, my brother, I'll take the barn." The Hindu priest and the politician were settling in when they heard a knock on the door. They opened it to find the rabbi standing there. "So sorry, my friends, but there's a pig in the barn, and I can't sleep beside such a filthy animal." The politician said, "Okay, let it be remembered that I sacrificed my comfort for the greater good." The rabbi and the Hindu priest were settling in when they heard a knock on the door. They opened it to find the pig and the cow standing there. A priest and rabbi are having lunch together. The rabbi has some matzo bread to eat, and the priest has a ham sandwich. The priest says to the rabbi, "Man, I know you have your religious prohibition on ham, but let me tell you, just once, you ought to see your way clear to having some of this absolutely wonderful Parma ham." The rabbi says, "Okay, I will." The priest says, "Really? When?" The rabbi replies, "At your wedding." A priest, rabbi, and atheist walk into a bar and each ask for a drink. The bartender, saying nothing and looking disdainful, points to a sign clearly labeled, "No jokes served here." Without a fight, the priest, rabbi, and atheist leave the bar, heads hanging. The next day, a chicken walks in and plops down on the bar stool. Wiping the inside of a glass, the bartender approaches and asks the chicken, "Are you part of this joke?" "Yeah." The chicken replies. Again, he points to the sign, "No jokes served here." The chicken argues, "Well, then how's a chicken supposed to get his beak wet?" The bartender moves his pointed finger from the sign to the window. "There's another bar across the road." A couple sees a man sobbing on his knees at a cemetery. The man is yelling out, "Why did you have to die? I cannot live like this." The couple come over to console him and notice the tombstone is of someone of similar age as the distraught man. "Sir, who was this?" asks the woman. "Was it your brother? Your friend?" The man looks up at them. "My wife used to be married to him until he passed away." Continues crying out, "Please come back. I cannot take her any longer." A hearse was driving to the hilltop cemetery. Insult! It started to climb up a steep hill out of town. The hill became steeper, and the casket started to slip backward. Just prior to the peak of the hill, the casket slipped further out of its catches and fell out the back of the hearse. It started to slide back down the hill, gathering speed as it went. Cars were swerving to avoid it. Faster and faster, the casket went back towards town. Onlookers watched with astonishment. At the bottom of the hill, there was a pharmacy. The casket smashed through the doors of the pharmacy and ran into the dispensing counter, with its momentum making the casket jolt upright and the lid fall forward. The pharmacist looks up from his paperwork and asks the person inside how he could help him. "I was hoping you had something to stop my coffin," was the reply. A group of police officers are sitting outside a woman's house after she murdered her husband. One calls dispatch and says, "We got a woman armed with a knife in here and she just killed her husband." Dispatch says, "Do you know why she killed her husband?" The officer replies, "Yeah, she told him not to step on the floor right after she mopped, and he stepped on it anyway." Dispatch asks, "Well, do you have her in custody yet?" "No, not yet," the officer says. Dispatch says, "Why not?" The officer hesitates for a moment, then finally replies, "Well, the floor still looks wet." A mental health specialist had a group meeting with housewives who wanted to learn about themselves. They were sitting in a circle and the specialist said, "Let's talk about your latent desires. I will start with Martha. Martha, you brought your child with you. What is her name?" Martha replied, "Her name is Penny." The specialist said, "Judging by your expensive jewelry, you are fixated on wealth and money." The specialist asked the next woman to name her child whom she had brought to the session. The woman said, "My name is Donna, and my little girl is named Candy." The specialist said, "Your obesity and your early onset diabetes would indicate your proclivity for sugar." The specialist turned to the next woman and said, "What are your children's names?" The woman immediately stood up and said, "Peter and Rod, let's go. We don't need to listen to this nonsense." Two robins were sitting in a tree. "I'm really hungry," said the first one. "Me too," said the second. "Let's fly down and find some lunch." They flew to the ground and found a nice plot of ploughed ground full of worms. They ate and ate and ate until they could eat no more. "I'm so full I don't think I can fly back up to the tree," said the first one. "Me neither. Let's just lay here and bask in the warm sun," said the second. They plopped down, basking in the sun. No sooner than they had fallen asleep when a big fat tomcat snuck up and gobbled them up. As the cat sat washing his face after his meal, he thought, "I just love Baskin Robbins." A proctologist gets sick of his medical career and decides it's time for a change. He does a bit of research and settles on trying his hand at being a mechanic. He attends mechanic school diligently and pays attention in the hopes of being the best mechanic in town. After taking his final exam, he notices a mistake with the grade on the test and asks the teacher, "Sir, you have me 50% out of a possible 100% on the practical exam. This must be a mistake." The teacher replies, "It's no mistake. 50% of the grade is for perfect disassembly of the engine. 50% is for perfect reassembly of the engine. I gave you another 50% on top because you did it all through the exhaust pipe." A heart surgeon took his car to his local garage for a regular service, where he usually exchanged a little friendly banter with the owner, a skilled but not especially wealthy mechanic. "So tell me," says the mechanic, "I've been wondering about what we both do for a living and how much more you get paid than me." "Yes?" says the surgeon. Well, look at this, says the mechanic, as he worked on a big, complicated engine. I check how it's running, open it up, fix the valves, and put it all back together so it works well as new. We basically do the same job, don't we? And yet you are paid 10 times what I am. How do you explain that? The surgeon thought for a moment and, smiling gently, replied, Try it with the engine running. A woman was caught by the cop in a cemetery along with 2 boys. All 3 were brought before an officer on charges of indulging in obscenity. The officer decided to question them one by one. He turned to the first boy and asked, "Who are you? And what were you doing there?" The boy, trying to keep a straight face, replied, "I was playing the violin, sir." The police officer, not particularly amused but willing to overlook it, fined him $50 and let him go. Next, the officer asked the second boy the same question. "And you? Who are you? And what were you doing there?" The second boy, following the first boy's lead, confidently said, "I was also playing the violin, sir." The officer sighed, fined him merce, and let him go as well. Finally, it was the young woman's turn. The officer looked at her and asked, "And you? Were you also playing the violin?" The young woman, with that smile, replied, "No, sir. My name is Violin." A man and his wife have been happily married for 3 years and are out golfing like they often do. As the husband is teeing off, he confesses, "I have something terrible to tell you, but I really hope you forgive me. Right after we got married, I cheated on you. It was only once, and it was a huge mistake. I've regretted it ever since." His wife replies as she steps up to the tee, "I accept that, and I understand. I have something I need to tell you." The husband replies, "Anything, honey. I'm just happy you're so relaxed about my mistake." She tells him, "About a year before I met you, I had a sex change operation. I used to be a man." He is shocked. "You son of a gun! How could you? For all of these years you've been teeing off from the ladies' tee box, you cheater!" A kindergarten teacher comes to class and says, "Today, class, I am going to give you a letter of the alphabet, and I want you to give me a word that begins with that letter." She begins with the letter A, and all the kids raise their hands. There is one kid in the back named Johnny that is real eager to answer the question, but the teacher knows that he is always vulgar and likes to use obscenities, so she chooses on little Mary to answer. Mary stands and says, "Apple." The teacher replies, "That's great, Mary. Good job." So she moves on to the letter B, and again Johnny is still eager to answer the question, but the teacher is sure that he will probably say "b" or something like that, so she calls on Todd. Todd says, "Baseball." And the teacher replies, "Good job, Todd." So they start going through the alphabet and the class attention dwindles, except for Johnny. The teacher comes to the letter R, and no one except for Johnny is raising their hand, so she is forced to call on him. "Okay, Johnny, what starts with R?" she says. "R, a rat," Johnny replies. "Rat? That's it? Rat?" the teacher questions with astonishment. "Yeah," says Johnny, "big rat with a 12 inches long." A group of kindergarteners were trying to become accustomed to the first grade. The biggest hurdle they faced was that the teacher insisted on no baby talk. You need to use big people words, she'd always remind them. She asked Chris what he had done over the weekend. I went to visit my nana. No, you went to visit your grandmother. Use big people words. She then asked Mitchell what he had done. I took a ride on a choo-choo. She said, no, you took a ride on a train. Use big people words. She then asked Bobby what he had done. I read a book, he replied. That's wonderful, the teacher said. What book did you read? Bobby thought about it, then puffed out his little chest with great pride and said, Winnie the A group of co-workers are sitting around discussing how much work and fun is involved in completing a project. First, the junior colleague says, completing a project is about 80% fun and 20% work. Then the team lead replies, no, there's more work involved than that. I would say that it's 60% fun and 40% work. The manager chimes in, no, completing a project is definitely way more work than that. I would say that it's 20% fun and 80% work. As the discussion continues, an intern suddenly walks by the office. The co-workers call the intern over, explain the situation, and ask for their opinion. The intern quickly replies, Gentlemen, completing a project must be 100% fun. One of the co-workers asks, well, how did you come to that conclusion so easily? The intern says, very simple. If there was any work involved, you guys would have me doing it for you. Shush. The gynecologist turned mechanic. After 20 years in the industry, a gynecologist decides he wants to try something new, so he takes some classes on automotive work. After completing the final, which consisted of a written test and a practical, he asked his instructor how he did. Well, you earned 150 points out of 100. The instructor said, How is that possible? Asked the gynecologist. Well, you aced the written test, so that was 50 points. And then you aced the engine rebuild, so that was another 50 points. And the last 50? You were the first person I've seen that rebuilt the engine through the muffler. A man invents a machine that slaps anybody who lies. He tries it out on his family at dinner. He asks his son, Why were you so late last night getting home? The son replies, I was just studying at the library. Slap. Fine, I was at John's house watching TV. Slap. Fine. His father looks at him disgusted. At your age, I didn't even know what was. Slap. The man's wife begins to laugh. He's definitely your son. Slap. Two little boys stole a big bag of oranges from a neighbor and decided to go to a calm place to share the lot equally. One of them suggested the nearby cemetery. As they were jumping the big gate to enter the cemetery, 2 oranges fell out of the big bag, but they didn't bother to pick them since they had enough in the bag. A few minutes later, a drunkard on his way from a bar passed near the cemetery gate and heard a voice saying, "One for me, one for you, one for me, one for you." He immediately sobered up and ran as fast as he could to a church nearby. For the priest, "Father, please come with me. Come and witness God and Satan sharing corpses at the cemetery." They both ran back to the cemetery gate, and the voices continued. "One for me, one for you, one for me, one for you." Suddenly the voice stopped counting and said, "What about the two at the gate?" The priest almost ran past the church gate, shouting, "We are not dead yet, ooh!" A wizard is walking through a cemetery one day, and after paying his respects to an old friend, he walks past two grave markers that each had a statue of the person buried in the grave. Both statues looked across a wide space toward each other with sadness and longing. The wizard read the epitaphs to see they were a pair of young lovers who died alone when their families refused to let them marry. Feeling sad for the lovers, the wizard summoned his finest magic and animated both statues. He said to the lovers, "I've made it possible for the two of you to live your dream." They both thanked him, joined hands, and went off into some bushes. There was a lot of activity in the bushes, plenty of shaking, and that knocked off the leaves from the bushes until the wizard could start to see the lovers. He politely interrupted them and said, "Perhaps you should find another bush with a little more coverage." They got up to find a bush, but as they walked away, the male statue said to the female, "Okay, but now you hold the pigeon so I can on it." While driving through the backwoods of Montana, a man noticed a weathered, shanty-style house with a sign out front that read, "Talking dog for sale." Intrigued, he pulled over and knocked on the door. The owner stepped out and said casually, "The dog's in the backyard." Curious, the man walked around to the backyard and found a friendly-looking Labrador retriever sitting calmly. "You can talk?" he asked, half joking. "Yep," the dog replied. The man's jaw dropped. Once he recovered, he stammered, "So, what's your story?" The lab gave a little shrug and began, "Well, I discovered I could talk when I was a pup. Naturally, I wanted to do something meaningful, so I contacted the CIA. They were thrilled to hire me, and soon I was jetting around the world. I'd sit in on meetings with spies and world leaders, gathering secrets because, let's face it, who would suspect a dog? I was their top agent for years." The man listened, stunned, as the lab continued. "But the constant travel wore me down. As I got older, I decided to take a quieter job at the airport, working undercover security. I'd stroll around, eavesdropping on shady characters. I uncovered major criminal operations, earned a bunch of awards, and eventually retired. Now, I just hang out here, enjoying my golden years." The man was in awe. He rushed back to the front of the house and said to the owner, "How much do you want for this dog?" $10, the owner replied. $10? The man exclaimed. "This dog is incredible. Why so cheap?" The owner shook his head and said, "Because he's a liar. He's never left the yard." Jack and Evelyn, a spirited older couple with a knack for wit, had just moved to Arizona, where everything, from the cacti to dreams of becoming a cowboy, seemed grander than life. Jack, long nurturing a fantasy of cowboy adventures, stumbled upon a pair of genuine leather boots on sale and couldn't resist. Beaming with excitement, he strutted home, the gleaming boots adding a swagger to his step. Stepping into the kitchen, where Evelyn was pouring coffee, Jack puffed out his chest and asked, "Notice anything different about me?" Evelyn barely glanced up and returned to her coffee. "Not really," she said with a shrug. Determined to make an impression, Jack disappeared into the bedroom, stripped down to nothing but his brand new boots, and reappeared striking a proud pose in the doorway. Hands on his hips, he announced, "How about now? Notice anything different?" Evelyn looked up, squinted briefly, and sighed. "Jack, if it was sagging yesterday, it's sagging today, and it'll be sagging tomorrow." Offended, Jack retorted, "Do you know why it's sagging, Evelyn?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Do tell." "It's sagging," Jack declared, "because it's staring at my new boots." Without skipping a beat, Evelyn replied with a deadpan expression. "Should have gone for the hat, Jack. Should have gone for the hat." A government employee sat in his office and, out of boredom, decided to see what was inside his old filing cabinet. He poked through the contents and came across an old brass lamp he's never seen before. "This will look good on my mantle," he said, and took it home with him. While polishing the lamp, a genie suddenly appeared. "Noble sir," he thundered, "you have 3 wishes you may ask of me." "All right," said the government clerk. "I would like an ice-cold Coke right now." He gets his Coke and drinks it. Now that he can think more clearly, he states his second wish. "I wish to be on an island with beautiful women who find me irresistible." Suddenly, he's on an island with gorgeous women eyeing him lustfully. He tells the genie his third and last wish. "I wish I'd never have to work again." Instantly, he was back in his government office. Sour Patch Kid walks into a support group for separated couples. He says, "Hello, I'm new, and my name is Barry. My wife, Godiva, and I have been together for 15 years, and have been separated for 2 of those years. She claims my mood swings are unbearable. Everyone says, 'Hi, Barry.' Twix says, 'Hello, my name is Wright. My wife left, moved out 3 weeks ago.' Everyone says, 'Hello, Wright.' Kit Kat says, 'Hello, my name is Kat, and my wife Kit and I have been on a break for 9 years. With a synchronized 7 seconds hesitation, everyone says, 'Hello, Kat.' The facilitator broke the following 10-second silence with, "Kat, would you be comfortable sharing your experience with your 9-year break?" Kat took a deep breath and said, 9 years ago, Kit confessed to an affair with a Snickers, who used to be my high school best friend. I confronted my best friend immediately, who claimed she was just hungry for affection and wasn't herself. I haven't spoken to either since." The facilitator proceeded to ask, "What do you feel like you've learned these past 9 years?" Kat takes a moment and says, "I guess never trust anything with more than 2 nuts. Al." The Almond Joy sighed in relief. An old man is approached by a young man who asks, "Do you remember me?" The old man replies, "No, I'm sorry I don't." The young man then explains, "I was your student once." Intrigued, the old man asks, "What do you do now? What have you made of your life?" With a smile, the young man responds, "I'm a teacher." "Ah, how wonderful," the old man says. "Like me?" "Yes," the young man replies. In fact, I became a teacher because you inspired me. The old man, curious, asks, and when did you decide to follow this path? The young man shares a story. One day, during class, a friend of mine had a beautiful new watch. I wanted it so badly that I stole it from his pocket. When he realized it was missing, he went to you and told you what had happened. You addressed the class, saying, "Someone's watch has been stolen. Whoever took it, please return it." I didn't return it because I didn't want to. So, you locked the door and asked all of us to stand in a circle. You said you would search our pockets one by one to find the watch. But then you added something. You asked us all to close our eyes. You said you would only search if everyone's eyes were shut. We did as you instructed. You went from pocket to pocket, and when you found the watch in mine, you took it. But you didn't stop there. You kept searching every pocket until you had checked everyone. When you finished, you said, "Open your eyes. The watch has been found." You never revealed who had taken it. You never mentioned the incident again. You didn't scold me, humiliate me, or even pull me aside to lecture me. That day, I felt the weight of my shame, but more importantly, I understood your lesson. You protected my dignity, even when I didn't deserve it. It was that moment that changed me. I decided I would never steal again. I decided I would strive to be a better person. And I decided I wanted to become a teacher, just like you. The old man listens quietly before responding. I remember the situation with the stolen watch, but I don't remember you, because I closed my eyes too. The old man smiles gently and adds, "This is the essence of teaching. If correcting someone requires humiliation, then you do not know how to teach."